All right, so I'm gonna go over the first day, the tutorial that we did. So this way, then you have that for a reference as well. To start, even starting up a new project in Illustrator, we go into Illustrator, hit Command N, or you can go up here and go to New. In here, the project is going to be shoot, hold on one second. I have to pull this back up. The actual size for reference was 10 by right here. So this, what you try and do. So you got to remember, what the project is, but you also want to think about how you're going to be printing it, right? So we are printing on the 11 by 17. And you want to scale basically down, or let's say we have to have a finished print of 11 by 17. That means we need to print on 12 by 18 because you always want to have room for your bleed and your trim marks. All right. In the classroom, we have access to 11 by 17, which is why then I made the project to be 10 by 14.375. All right. So in here, we went 10 wide, and you make sure you're in inches right here. You can see the other units of measurement right here. And then 10.375. Then down here underneath bleed, all we need is 1/8 of an inch. All right, simply enough. You want this checked off, so this way when you increase one of them, all four move ahead as well. Because we're printing, this is going to be CMYK. And then raster effects, this is something that we're going to cover much later. But essentially, this is if you're going to do any kind of effect. So you're going to rasterize anything. It's going to keep it as a high res image. If we're doing something for screen base, we're probably going to be dropping it down to here. We don't typically do anything with 72, but screen is going to be 150 and then 300. All right. Once you have all that, artboards, I'm going to kind of cover that again, how you can add more artboards. But if you know right off the bat that you are designing something that's going to need multiple artboards, you can control the number of artboards right here. So I'm going to hit create. And then you can see the document goes right to, wait a sec, that doesn't look right. Because I did not put 14. There we go. There we go. All right, so now you can see the document goes right to the edge of the black line. That's the end of your page. Anything that you want to go beyond that, you want to bring it to the bleed, which is the red line. All right. The reason being is if it shifts on you, you want to make sure that there's no white sliver. All right. When we're in class and we're printing out one thing, we have more control of where the cut is, and we can pretty much be exact. But if this gets sent out to a printer and we're printing 100 copies, they're not going to be cutting out 100 copies at a time. They're going to be cutting them all out at once, and there is going to be shifting involved when it prints. So this is why you want to make sure you have a bleed. All right, next we want to have a margin. So the margin is similar to the need as far as the bleed's concerned. So that way if there's shifting, we don't have anything right to the edge. So if we have a text or something, let's say we end up having, this sitting here, and we want to make sure that, we want this right to the edge. If we put it too close to the edge and it shifts, then it's going to get cut off, right? Then it's going to become way too close. The other reason for a margin is to bring negative space into your document, right? So this way then you could keep everything a much cleaner, safe distance around while inviting some of that negative white space into our design. All right, so there's dual reasons for wanting to add in a margin. Now, Illustrator is not going to give you that as an option, just like with the bleed it does, but it's not going to give that. So we have to manually put a margin into our document. So right in here, what we can do is we can just subtract an inch total from our actual document size. So this way then you know, we have a nice 1/2 inch going all the way around. Depending on what you're designing, if you're designing something much smaller, say, you're going to have probably a less of a margin, right? But if we're having a poster that's going to be to this size, then, you know, we definitely can increase the size of that margin. All right, so the width is 10, so we're going to drop that down to 9 inch. Oh, let me kind of go back to this. So over here, we have our rectangle tool. If we hold it, you can see we have other options for creating shapes. All right, so we're going to hit rectangle, and then if you just click and draw, you can then create the actual shape of whatever it is, whatever size that you need. All right, if you know what size you want, then you can just click on the screen itself. So the width here is going to be 9, so this way it subtracts 1 from the 10. And then this here is going to be 13.375, so then it's going to be 1 inch all the way around. All right, now we want to drop this right in the middle. Okay, so what we can use is the alignment tool. So we're going to go to our alignment window, and then go to align right here. And then this right here for me, click this off, and then you have all the different ways of aligning objects. Right here you can see align to. So right here I have it aligned to the artboard. So this way if I click the left, it goes right to the left. If I click the top, it goes right to the top. All right, so you can see each one of these, how these work, because we want dead center. I want it to hit center and then center. So once you have that set, we want to have it as a guide. Right, we don't want this to be something that kind of like stands out, obviously, because I don't want to have a black background in my design. So I am going to hit Command 5, and then you can see it makes it into a blue line. All right. One of the things that you want to think about is locking and unlocking guides. There are times that you're going to want to be able to, make this clickable, right? So if we go to view, we go down to guides. Here are your options. A lot of times you want to see what the design looks like without guides, and then you can see how you can unlock them, right? So we got the hide guides, and then we have the unlock guides. So if we unlock it, you can see it's clickable. And then if we go up here and we hit guides and lock, now it's not. All right. All right, so now we can create rectangles again with color. All right, so over here, this is our color option right in here. You can see that this is black. If I double click it, you can see that we can pull in a different color of what we want, and then we can create a background worth of color. All right, so if I want a bar going all the way across, remember, I want to go beyond the red line, right? So either go right to the red line or go, beyond, because it's going to be cut off anyway. All right. Good. The color tool here. So this is our swatches. Let's pull this down. And here's our color right here. So with everything with the color for what we're doing, it's going to be CMYK. So this is mixing our cyan, our magenta, our yellow, and our black. All right, so when we have this selected and we want to add black to the design itself, if we want to take away some of the magenta, add more cyan, maybe add some yellow to bring it into the green tone. So here you control the handles for the actual colors. And here you can see these are the swatches that, this is the default swatches that Illustrator is going to give you. To add a stroke, so right here you can see that this is the fill color. To add a stroke, this right here, you click and you bring the stroke forward. So now if I was to add, say I wanted to change this to yellow, but then I ended up clicking on yellow here, and you can see it doesn't actually change this because I had the stroke in the foreground. All right, so that's something that you want to pay attention to, that you need to make sure that this is in the front. So you can click here or here. So these are the two options. So now when I click yellow, it will change the whole thing to yellow. Now, say, let me go back to adding this back to blue, and then I'm going to bring this forward. Let's pick something a little bit easier to see the difference. Now I want to increase the stroke because I can barely see what that stroke is. So I just want it to be a little bit thicker, right? So now we're going to bring in our stroke. Here you can go up to window, go down to stroke. Everything in here is going to be alphabetical order for you. So in here, you can see it starts off by default as 1 point. So I'm going to click this, and then I'm going to increase. And you can see as I increase, the stroke in here will increase for me. Okay. Now I can click this and then pull up immediately other stroke numbers right here that go in increments of 10 or 20, and then up to 100. So in points, and you're looking for a reference of what a point is, 72 points is going to be an inch. All right. So if I end up creating a line and I make this 72 points, and then I come over here and I flip this and I create a 1 by 1 inch square. So you can see that 72 points will equal 1 inch of my design. All right, just kind of give you a reference of what points are. Now there are times that when you add a stroke, you don't want to say having that cover part of your actual rectangle. So in the stroke option, you're going to have these here that give you the alignment tool of where the stroke is. So by default, that stroke is always going to go, so right now we have 60, right? So this is always going to go on the outside and on the inside, okay? You can see that 30 points is going this way, and then 30 points is going into the inside. So now you can see that's the default. If I click the next one, it goes all on the inside, right? So if I wanted this to be the exact size, but then add a stroke to that element and allow it to go on the interior, that's the way to handle that. If I know I want to have a certain size, in this case of this rectangle, and I want to add a stroke to the outside, I now click on the outside. All right. All right, so we can also add not just rectangles, we can also add circles. So again, you can hold on to the rectangle tool and go to the ellipse tool. To draw a perfect circle, like if we didn't touch anything on the keyboard and we just start drawing, you can see we can create any kind of shape, any kind of oval. To create a perfect circle, we're going to hold Shift, and then you can see that it creates a perfect circle. All right. The other way of doing it, again, you can just click on the screen, and then you can drop that in that way if you know what size you want. If you want to have the circle go right from the middle, you hold Option, Shift, and you can see that's a difference in how you add the circle that way. So it radiates out from the middle of wherever you click. Okay. Going back to the rectangles, let's say we want to have a rounded edge. All right, so right here we have our rounded rectangle, and then you can click here, and then you're going to up here, you can see this here is where you control the curve of the, or the radius rather, of the curved edges of your rectangle. All right, now let's say you don't have that option, or maybe you don't want all four, right? Let's say you want to have just maybe one rectangle, or I'm sorry, one corner of the rectangle to be curved. I'm going to get rid of the stroke. All right. So I basically want to have this, but I only want the top right to have a curve. So now I'm going to select just the top right. So you can see here are our anchor points. All right. And that's what makes Illustrator different from Photoshop or other design software, is that in Illustrator, you're creating all vector, and that's basically math, okay? So in this case, we have 4 anchor points to our rectangle. So in here in the top right, with the white arrow, right, I want the direct selection tool. I'm going to drag and click, or I can just hover over and click. Whatever it is, you can see the difference between the other 3, which is outlined with the blue, and this is highlighted. would also see this option right here shows up. It's not showing up on any other corners for us, because now I can click here and drag, and now I'm affecting this. So basically I'm creating a Bezier curve for this. You can see the handles are now here for this curve. If I click on another one, I'm going to allow myself to do that. So now you can control which corners you want to have the rounded radius corner. All right. You can select multiple ones at once. So if I say I want these two to be the same, so I'm going to select this one, hold Shift, select this one. So now you can see these two are selected. Because they're selected, I'm going to click on one, and it's going to affect both equally. All right. All right. Good. All right. So then very quickly, I covered the star tool, the polygon. That's any kind of shape. If we just click on the screen, you can see the different sides. So if we want an octagon here, we can create it like this. The star tool. So we got this here for the star. If we want certain points to our star, so if we want to go to 10 points and we hit OK, you can see how we control this. In here with the star tool, you have two radiuses. So we have the outside radius, and then we have the inside. So if we select this and go 0.5, and then with this one 5, you can see the radius is here, and then the radius for the outside. So that's what those two values represent. Good. All right, so now the pen tool. We're going to go to the pen tool right here. And in this, you create shapes by clicking and dragging and moving to create handles to create your Bezier curves. All right, so let's say if we wanted to have kind of a wave going across our document. I'm going to click and drag. All right, now my dragging isn't actually creating a line. All it's doing is creating the starting point for the Bezier curve. So you can see that I have my anchor point that I initially have from clicking on the screen, and now I'm creating a handle for the next curve. So now I let go, and you can see that it's showing me the direction of my next anchor point. And then when I click and drag, you can see there is my curve to the actual document, to the actual Bezier curve rather. Now I'm going to click here again, and you can see that I'm creating this line. Maybe it's easier. Let's do this. All right. So I click and drag, and then click and drag. And you can see that I'm creating that smooth curve by having these anchor points. So right now I have my 4 anchor points. And then I have these handles that are showing the curve of everything. Now the great thing about the pen tool is you want to have your hand on the keyboard, because what I can do is, let's say I'm drawing and I want to make adjustments. You don't have to finish your drawing to go back in and make adjustments, right? So you can see when I hold Command, my pen turns into a white arrow. This is going to allow me to click on anchor points, click on handles to move and smooth things out. I can even click on the actual curve itself, and it's moving both handles at once. But I never leave the pen tool, because as soon as I let go, you can see now it's letting me to continue that. And then come in here and move this and adjust. And then if you get off of this, like what just happened with the pen tool, now I can click this, drag, and then continue drawing. Now, if I want this to be a filled object, and it looks like I'm making a peanut here, you go to the end and you can see that it has a little O next to me. Right now I have nothing here, so if I just click, you can see that I just have like a pen. But as soon as I go to the end, you can see it kind of locks into that place. It's letting me know that I'm ending that path and closing it, right? That's important, especially if you're going to be creating illustrations and you want to be able to fill your objects, right? Because as soon as I do this, and I click here, this is now a filled object. I can come up in here, I can hit this little arrow to flip from stroke to fill, and now you can see that this is a filled object. Now if I don't have that, and I'm clicking here and I'm creating this, and I'm creating this, and then for some reason I'm creating a different shape, and then I have another shape, right? So even if I was to move this right on top, and then I move this right to here, and move this to there, even though that this is a solid shape, if I simply try and fill this, you can see it's all disjointed, all right? So when you're creating something, if you know you want to be able to have something that's going to be filled, then you're going to want to continue that stroke all the way through until the very end. So you have a closed path that you can then fill with an object, with a color. All right. Good, good. All right. Then, the difference, again, I kind of showed you the selection tool by how you can click and, click on any of these anchor points to move. The other advantage of the selection tool right here is you get a bounding box that then you can change the size and the scale. So if I hold shift, I can scale down or up. I can rotate objects. I can just squish it down. I can pull it out. So this gives me the option of having, the bounding box by having the selection tool here. Whereas, the white allows me to click individual anchor points or multiple anchor points by dragging across and then moving. All right. So those are the main two differences between those two arrows. All right. So now adding text to the document. You have different options for adding type. So if I just click on the screen, I'm going to have my text sitting here, right? And you can see that I have also a bounding box because of clicking on the black arrow gives me that option, right? So if I click on the screen and I can type out what I need, I can then have that option to increase the size. I can have the option to rotate. All right. One thing that you don't want to do whenever you're working with type is murder it. Okay. So let's pull up the type tool option here. If that comes in here, go to window, go down to type, and we want character. So we're going to want character and we're going to want paragraph. All right. So in here, we have our, anytime that we have our text in all of the Adobe software, we're going to have our family. So this here, we can control what the family is going to be. So let's go to a different typeface. This here is going to be the weight. So you have all the different options for what the weight is going to be. One of the other things you're going to want to do anytime that you're working with type is see these little two arrows next to the word character. They're going to be on every single one of your documents. If screens, that's going to give you different options that you're working with. So if I click it, it's going to open up and give me the full range. If I click it again, it's going to be kind of close. It collapses. And you click, so that you can kind of filter through, all of the different options that you have for this. Okay. So underneath the weight that you can choose from, you also have your size itself. All right. So this is where we control the actual type size. So if we know that we want something to be 12 points, we come in here and change it to 12 points. All right. Underneath that, this is going to be your kerning, and I'm going to cover kerning in a little bit. So in here, a lot of times you need to go in and fix kerning pairs. So essentially, if we just drop our cursor in between two glyphs, so two characters, we can change and alter the spacing only between those two letters by controlling this here. Go back to here, go back to auto. To the right of that is going to be your tracking. This is a spacing between all of the letters in a single line of text. All right. This is very useful. Say you're creating text with very small size, right? So let's say, with the project you're working on, you have the URL and maybe it's going to be very small because you might want to use, QR code to help the person get to the website for more information. But you also want to give them the option, right? So it's going to be a little bit smaller text. Or let's say you're creating a business card that's going to have small text. That helps. Just opening up some of that spacing is going to be useful. The opposite is true if we have very large text, right? So we're creating anything for a billboard. We don't need to have all of that negative spacing between the characters. We can totally close that in slightly. All of the metrics, when you're looking at everything, is made for readable text in a paragraph form. So a lot of times when you're looking at some of these metrics and some of the values that are associated with it, it's made and intended for how it's going to be seen in a readable state, right? So anything that's going to be 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 point text, that's what you're working with. Not if you're working at 72 points or if you're working at even 36 points, right? But definitely not 5 points. So you always want to remember that once you start going and pushing beyond, what the text was intended for, you're going to want to make minor adjustments, okay? Underneath this, you have your height and your width. This, whenever you're working with text in a design, you want to keep that at 100 and 100. Again, you don't want to murder the text, right? We don't want to have condensed typeface in here because you can see that we just murdered that. If you want condensed typeface, then you go and find a typeface that has a condensed version for you. You go in here and what one's going to have? You're going to end up having different versions going to have condensed for you, right? So now with this, we have that option to have condensed, okay? You don't want to then just take this and just slam it down because then you're messing with the typeface, you're messing with the readability, okay? All right. The other way that you can add text to the document is by clicking and dragging to create a text box, okay? Now, the reason that we want to have a text box, now let's get this to go back to here. Is that this gives us the option for paragraph text. Let's zoom out a bit. All right. So it keeps everything in here for us. Okay. When we end up having the text, I hate these red lines. Let me bring in. All right. All right. So we have our text, and you can see when I go to my black arrow, I can control the size of the text box itself. It's not changing the size of the text. See, you can see this is staying right here at 12 points. So when I make it smaller, I'm not making the text smaller. Just like in here, I have this at 12 points, but if I increase it, I increase the size, right? That's not the case when you have a text box, because a text box is letting me change the size of the box itself, not necessarily the text. To change the text in here, I have to go and click and change the actual type size, all right? Also, when I want to rotate anything, it's going to rotate the box itself, but not necessarily the text. So that right away at the beginning, those are the advantages of having, just clicking on a screen. You have the option to be able to change things with just a line of text as opposed to creating a text box. All right, the other thing in here that I want to show you is the leading. So we have our text sitting in here. Leading is going to be the spacing in between each line of text. All right. So with this, you're going to see parentheses around your text. That lets me know that it's the optimal value for readability. Again, for smaller text. All right. So if I want to increase the spacing, I can come up in here and I can increase. All right. So you can bring in some more negative space in between just to help it read a little bit easier. Just let some, the text to breathe a bit more and bring some negative space and white space in there. But you don't want to go too tight, right? Because once you start to get too tight, you want to be careful of your descenders and ascenders running into each other. So a descender over here, you can see that drops below the baseline. The baseline is this blue line that the text sits on. So when that drops down, you don't want it to interfere with anything that's going to be the ascender. The ascender is anything that goes above the X height line. And the X height line is the invisible line that the lowercase, the minuscule letters, are giving you, right? So you can see from here to above, that here is going to be that space that you want to be careful that these don't get too close and then start closing in on itself. All right. If you want to get back to what the optimal leading is, you just go back to auto. So in here, this is always going to be 120% of the type size. All right. So for 11, it's 13.2. If we go to 10, you can see that's 12. If we go up to 12, you can see it's 14.4. So this parentheses is what the optimal is when you're looking to have it as readable text. Okay. All right. Good. All right. So now we want to add text different ways. We also want to have text that can sit on other shapes. All right. So let's look at a pen tool again. And let's say I want to have text kind of going on a line for me, right? So I'm going to create a simple wave of text by creating a line. So it's not filled, it's just a simple line. I'm going to come up in here, I'm going to select this line, and then I want to select this line here, go to my type tool, and you can see with my type tool out in the open, it has like a little rectangle around it. When I hover over a line, it has a little squiggly line going through it. All right. This is going to let me know that I want to type on this line itself. So now when I click, it will. You can see that that was now replaced. I hit Command V to drop that text in, and you can see that that text now sits on this line. All right. Now when I go to my arrow, I have 3 lines in my text line. All right. I have the beginning that I can click and drag, and it moves the insertion, so I can pull it all the way to the beginning if I want, or I can have it go all the way to the end. But that's where you control where the beginning is. This here, you control the end, right? So if I don't want it to go to the end, I want to stop it here, I can have it stop there, okay? The middle line allows me to flip from one side to the next. So I'm going to click this, and then I'm going to drop it and pull it down. You can see it goes from one side to the next. This is useful in a moment when we try typing on a circle and we want it to go either on the inside or the outside. All right. Let's pull this over. Let's go back to our ellipse tool. Let's draw a perfect circle. And now I'm going to go to my type tool, and I want to type this on the inside of the shape. All right, so instead of having this sit inside a square, I want text to sit inside a circle. All right, so it's a filled object. I can come up in here. I can see how it changes into a little circle for me. That lets me know that I'm going to type inside a shape. So now my text sits inside that circle itself. All right, we can also create, with our pen tool, we can create the shape. And then come up in here, and then now our text sits inside that shape. All right. You can still control and manipulate the shape that you created. You can go to the white arrow, and you can see that each one of these is still clickable. So if we want to go and adjust the shape, you can see that affects how the text is working inside. Same with this, same with a perfect circle, right? We can create this and adjust that circle into a different shape. So once you make anything that's going to become text, it can still be manipulated. Even this initial shape that we created here with the pen tool, this still can be changed. All right. So just because text is now residing, on top or taking over that shape that we created, we don't lose the ability to manipulate and kind of alter what the text is doing. There are many times that you create something and you think everything is good, but then you start working the design and you need to make a change to it, right? So this is still an option for you as you are kind of going through and making those changes. All right. Now let's say we want to type on the outside of a solid shape. Now everything is fine if it's not completely filled, right? So if this is not, I'm going to come up in here. I can add anchor points, so you can see the pen tool. I can remove anchor points by doing this, but I can also add anchor points by clicking. You can see there's a plus symbol right here. So I want to create an anchor point right there and hit delete. So that way it's not filled, right? So it's still a perfect circle minus this. So when I have this and I select, you can see that it's still allowing me just to click on that shape. All right. If I have a perfect circle and I want to still type on the outside of this, if I just simply click, you can see it's going to, think that I want to type on the inside. Okay. This is the only time that you got to come up in here and hold onto the pen tool and select what it is that you're trying to do. So right here, we want to type on the path. So I'm going to select this and then click on this path. And now you can see that that text runs on that path. That's the only time that you're going to need to force Illustrator to do what you want. Now, once this is in here, we can see that I want this to be on the inside. I don't want it on the outside. And that becomes useful, when you're working with the text on the perfect circle for you. All right. All right. Good. All right, so adding images into our file. So these are the ones that we've been working with. If we simply just click on this and drag in, it's going to bring this in as a placement. All right, you can see there's an X through the actual design, actual image. That's letting me know that it's being placed. The other way, you can go into your, where are you? I never do it this way. I always open with, which I'm going to show you in 1 second. Yeah, thank you. Right here. This is the other option, right? So we can go up into here, go to File, go to Place, and then it's going to let me go in and find the image and then place it in the document here. All right. When you do that and you hit place, you're going to have like a little option for the for where it goes and how much you drag. So right now you can see it's attached to my cursor. If I just click on the screen, it's just going to make it the size it is. If I click and drag, it's going to fill what that size is. All right. Now, the other way is to go in and you right click, open with, and then I'm going to open it in Illustrator. This is going to open it up in a new document for me. I'm going to hit click on the image itself and go Command C to copy. Then I'm going to close this out and then Command V to paste. Now the difference, you can see these here that I brought in have an X through it. This one does not. All right, so this is embedded into the actual document. Right now, these are the images that I'm working with right here. If I end up deleting these, they're no longer on my computer. These two are no longer in here because they're replaced, right? So there is a link. This is linked to that image. This here is linked to that image. All right, so it keeps the file size a little bit smaller for me, but it's not part of the actual document yet. All right, you can go in and add and embed the image at the end. But right now, if I was to remove these, I would have to go back and find those images again in order to finish my project. The advantage of this is I don't care what happens to this, right? Ideally, you want to keep everything clean in a folder for you, so this way, you don't end up running into any issues later on. But I prefer to have my files embedded into the actual document. All right. The other thing you're going to want to look at are your links. So it's right here, and I don't need actions. So in here is going to have every image that's in here. You can see the difference between the three. You have the little linked right here, so let me know. But either way, when I click on an image, regardless if it's linked or not, I want to be looking at the resolution, which is right here, right? So this here for the points per inch is at 300. We want to stay at 300, okay? That makes sure that when we go to print, everything will be high res. If I click on this, you can see that the resolution is less. As I make it smaller, it brings in more of the information, more of those pixels into that square inch. So therefore the resolution increases, right? So this one here, if I increase the size, the resolution drops. So that's something that you want to be very careful of, is when you bring in any image, you want to make sure, if you want this to cover the entire document, make sure that it's going to be at that 300. Because there are times you bring something in, it's going to be low res, and you try and make it bigger, and then you start seeing it go below 300. That's when you need to find that image as a higher res image, or if you can't, then you got to find another image. So it's always wise when you're still in the beginning process of working on a document, make sure you have this open and make sure that you can use the file in the end. There's nothing worse than falling in love with a composition, coming up with a design for an image that is not going to print properly for you. All right. Where are we? Right there. We are. All right. So now, say we want to create a shape and place this in here, right? So we want to basically, I don't want this to fill. I only want it to kind of be an arc like this, right? So I'm going to come up in here. I'm going to go to my pen tool. I'm going to click here and here, draw an arc. And then I want to have this image inside that shape. All right. So with this, I can go and select both, and I'm going to hit Command 7 to create a mask. So now you can see that that image is on the inside of that mask. I still have the ability to go in and adjust the mask, right? I have the ability to click inside and move the image around, right? So if I want to make it a little bit smaller, right? I have all this extra. I have to first select the text, because if I just select this, it's selecting both the mask and the image that it's in. So I want to first select the image behind. Then while it's selected, go to the black arrow, and then I can alter the image on the inside. All right. And then I have that sitting right in here where I want it to be. So anything can have a mask. You can have circles. You can just draw a circle over this. And then select both and hit Command 7, and then you have your mask. And then I can go in here and adjust the image behind. All right. If you want to release a mask, right? So right now we have this, and I'm changing the size of all this, and then I decide I no longer want that. Then I'm going to hold Option Command 7, and it brings everything back. The mask is still there. You can see the mask is right there, but it's going to always have no fill and no stroke. So then we can bring back a fill to that original mask. All right. Good. All right, so say we're working now and we have different options, and I want to add more artboard. So I have my text going on, and then I have a text, right, of a paragraph. All right. So I got different things going on. I come to a point where I want to go in a different direction. All right. I want to kind of keep this design. I want to create another artboard over here. This is your artboard tool. All right. So it's important to keep everything. I explained in class how important it is to never, throw anything away. Okay. So in here, you come up to a point where you want to go into two different directions. I no longer want this. I kind of want this to be in that place, right? So with the artboard, I'm going to hold Option, and you can see that my cursor is going to have a little black and white option. Just like if I want to make a copy of this text and I drag and hold Option, I'm making copies of whatever I drag. All right. So you can hit Command C to copy, Command V to paste, right? Or you just hold Option and drag to make copies. Same thing is going to be true when we're making copies of the artboard. So we have the artboard tool, I hold Option and I drag. Okay, so we'll make a copy of everything that's in there. There's one instance that doesn't copy everything over. You can see our margins that we created. Because our guides are locked, it's not going to copy over. All right, so what you need to do is you need to unlock your guides. So now I just unlock my guides and now I can drag. All right, so if you don't want to go up to View, go to Guides, you can see that the Option Command semicolon, that is going to toggle them back and forth. All right, so right now they're unlocked. I'm going to hit Option Command semicolon, and now they're locked. All right, so you kind of go through, you make, different artboards. You start going in all different directions. All right, I'm going to change that. So this is now going to be different. I no longer want that. I want this to be in one of these. And you're kind of going through and you're making all the different design ideas. And you get to a point where you're like, all right, I have different ideas. I no longer like this one here, right? So I want to delete it. Please don't just delete it. All right, you want to have the ability to go back into your designs and look at what you have. There are many instances where you're struggling with a design. It's just not clicking. It's not working. But then, you kind of like just push it off to the side and you start working on a different direction, a different, design altogether. And then in the process, it clicks. It's like, oh, if only I did this with that design, I can go back to it. And then that's probably going to make it work. If you throw it away, out of sight, out of mind, you're not even going to allow that to become a possibility. All right, so just keep everything on here when you're working, because you never know when inspiration is going to kind of come to you where you can go back to that and go in a different direction. However, if you don't want it part of your document, right? So let's get to actually saving our document. Right now, we're still sitting here with an untitled. If the computer crashed, I lost everything in here. So I want to go up. I want to save as. Now, you have options of saving it as an Illustrator file. So that way it's native. It's always going to be as an AI file. For me, I save everything as a PDF. The reason being is because I have a lot of files that I work with. And for me, a PDF has always been very stable. As Illustrator upgrades throughout the years, I can still go back into an older file, have no issues. I would not have any issues with an AI file either. However, I send files off to a client and to look at things, and I like to have one file, right? So as I'm working, I don't have, maybe my conceptual designs, but once I start having iterations of different designs, I don't want to be working with like multiple files, version 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So in here, I'm going to select PDF, and regardless, so even if you want to save it as an AI file, at the end of this process, you will save it as a PDF because we want to print it. And you want to print from Adobe Acrobat, not from Illustrator. All right. So if you want to save everything as an AI file, please do, if that's what you prefer to do. Once you're done, and you're ready to go and you want to print, then you're going to go to a PDF anyway. So you go to PDF. Click this, hit save. In here, you want to go to marks and bleeds. We want to have trim marks because we want to know where to cut our actual document because we're going to have a bleed. And in here, you want to make sure that you're using your bleed settings because you can see they're grayed out. If some reason you forgot to add the bleeds, you didn't have any red, but you definitely brought everything beyond the trim lines, you can add them in here. But if you set up your document properly in the beginning, all you got to do is click on this little bar. You do not need any of the other information in here. This is the most important, trim marks. All right, so now we hit save. And then my PDF is right here. That's still saving. Hit there, and you can see that these are my 4 documents. You can see that we have a bleed. You can have that right here. So this is our trim mark. So we put down a straight edge, cut off the top, cut off the sides, and you can see that this here is our bleed. All right, so now we have this and we're working, and I decided, you know what, I don't like this, I don't like this one, I don't want this one, I only want these 2. So go to the artboard tool, click on this artboard, hit delete. Click on this artboard, hit delete. It doesn't delete the design. It only removes the artboard. So now when I hit Command S to save, you can see in our document, it's updated to just be those 2 artboards. All right. So this gives everything, retains all of your design. So as you're going through the process, you can increase multiple artboards, as many as you want, and then you can remove them as you are getting closer and closer to the end. All right. Okay, good. That's it. All right, so yeah, so this is everything that we got to on that very first day. The only other notes that I have that we covered in the class was creating a mood board, either as a separate document or notes, anything that you do or create inside the gray area is going to be just inside the Illustrator file, but not seen in the actual PDF itself. All right. But yeah, always create a mood board. In this case, what images you are going to be using, what color scheme that you might be using, and then definitely the typefaces. All right, so there's not a lot of information for this first project, but it's a good practice to get into. So this way, more complex designs that you work on, you're going to be able to give people an idea of the direction you're going with. For the project itself. Once you close this out, right, and then we come in here, you can't just double click this file anymore to go back into Illustrator because it's a PDF. It's always going to want to open up into Acrobat. So you're going to want to right click, open with, and then go back into Illustrator, and then you're ready to go. You can also just drop it on top of the Illustrator icon right here, and then it will open up back into Illustrator. So that's probably the only downfall to saving as a PDF is when it comes time to wanting to continue working on it. You're going to just have to do that one extra step. All right, but that's it. Hopefully this helps anybody that wanted a refresher or to reference. But